So in this video, I'm going to show you how to create the binder that's going to hold the mini journals. So to make the binder, we are using a cereal box. And I love using the cereal box because they have those natural fold crease lines already. So first thing I did was just trimmed my box to a 6.5 inch length. So this is the first one I made in red. So let's go ahead and get started. I knew I wanted my book to measure 6.5 by 4.5. So what you see me doing here is scoring the sides. First thing I did was measure from the fold line to the edge, and I just made a mark and I scored it at that point, and I'm folding it down, and now we're using glue to glue those panels down. I did this in the other red book as well, and you can't tell once you wrap these up with the paper, you can't tell that there's a fold line there, and it just makes the binder sturdier. Now you'll see that I'm taking a black Sharpie and I start coloring in those score lines that are on the cereal box, and the reason for that is because I didn't want to cover it with the paper and I didn't want any tearing. So you'll see here in the red book that when you open it, all you see is the black line, and I chose black, but you can pick whatever color marker you want to color that in. To cover the front of our binder, you're going to need 2 pieces of paper that measure 8.5 by 6. And for the spine, you're going to need a piece of paper that measures 4 3/4 by 6.5. Now, the sizes that you would cut down these paper will vary to the size of your cereal box. Like the box that I'm using for this project was one of those jumbo boxes. So the spine, this one of the side panels, pretty much measures 2 inches. What I found to be the easiest way to attach and cover this box was to add glue to one panel, and instead of placing the box upside down on top of the paper, I took the paper and I lined it up to the edge of that one first fold and then press down. And I always recommend using your bone folder, or like you'll see here that I use my blue spatula to press that down for a nice seal. When you open it, your goal is that you want to see some of that paper overhang, because that's how you're going to cover the inside of your box. So now you're going to repeat until you cover the other panels. So here I am doing the other flap, and now I'm taking my spatula and I'm just pressing down on all the edges of the box itself to crease them. Now I take my project and I just start bouncing on all the sides so I can get a nice fold over without any tearing or ripping. So you're going to repeat this on all of the sides. Now I'm going to trim all of the 4 corners slightly, making sure that you leave just a little notch on that pointy side. Now I'm going to fold over all the papers, and before I glue, I'm just checking that all the corners that I didn't trim too far in. So if I did cut a little too far in and you can see part of the cereal box, take one of those corner pieces that you cut, glue it down to the cereal box, and then fold over your papers. Nobody will ever tell what you've done. They're not even going to tell what you've used to create this project. So before I glue down, I like to take my spatula and just press all the corners down to make sure, again, preventing tear or rips. Now here at the top portion of my binder, I gave it a trim because it was sticking out a little bit and it was interfering with the natural folds of the box. So now that I've trimmed that out, I'm adding glue to all my corner pieces and I'm just gluing everything down. And as I glue it down, I use my spatula to press it down for a nice seal. It's important to do that, if not, it will start to lift. So this is what the binder looks like so far. We've covered the front and the back cover. So now let's go ahead and we're going to cover the spine of our binder. Now my cereal box, this edge measures a little less than 2 inches. So I cut a piece of paper that measures 4 3/4 by 6.5. And on the 4 3/4 side, I scored it at 1 3/4 by 3.5. So here you're taking my spatula and I'm just creasing those folds. Now I'm going to attach it to the spine of my book. Now again, these measurements do depend on the size of your cereal box, the height, and the width of that spine itself. Now to cover the spine. The easiest way I found to cover the spine was to just do one section at a time. Here you'll notice that I added glue to just one side of the paper. I attach it to my book, press it down, use my spatula for a nice press, and then I repeat the steps with the rest of it. So I do the center, press down, spatula to press down, and now the last piece. Same thing, add the glue, fold it over, and then use your spatula or bone folder again for a nice press, for a nice seal. So this is what our book looks like so far, and what I'm doing is I'm just working in the paper, just folding it carefully. We don't want any tears or rips. So far, so good. So now let's go ahead and cover the inside. For the inside, you're going to need 2 pieces of paper that measure 4 by 5.5. When attaching the paper, make sure that you don't attach it on top of the seam. Now, when I was laying out my paper, I noticed that my paper was not covering those corner pieces. I trimmed too much in, so I'm taking just a couple of scraps, attaching it to the top, and then I'm gonna place my pieces of paper right on top of that. And again, try not to cover the seam of the box because you want that to be able to, easily fold over. Now to cover the inside spine. So the inside spine measures 6.5 by 2, but because you don't want to cover the natural seams of the cereal box, I'm just trimming it down about 1/8, and I think I did that 2 times that I trimmed it, because what will happen is that if I place the paper, it was bubbling up, and that's what we didn't want to see. What we wanted to see was when I added the design paper to the middle of the spine, I was able to fold the book closed and the paper inside was not going to bubble up. Again, you don't want to cover those seam lines, and that's why ahead of time I painted them black. I'm also here trimming the bottom edge, just a tiny little hair, so it would fit perfectly on my book. So this is our cover so far. So now let's go ahead and make the holes to add our string. So what I did here was I created a template just using a piece of scrap, and I measured it to fit exactly the size of the spine. And now I'm going to be using my crocodile, my hole puncher, to make these holes. So I'm just attaching my little template, and I'm using a paper clip to hold it in place. And then I'm going to use my hole puncher, and I have it set to the 1/8 setting. So I'm gonna line that up and just punch the 3 holes. So the first set of 3 holes are punched. So now let's go ahead and do the top portion of our holder. So I'm attaching again my template, holding it in place with the paper clip and lining it up and punching the holes again. Now to add the string. The string that I'm using is an elastic string. So what I did to determine the size that I needed was I wrapped it around my book 8 times and then I trimmed it. So now I have just a string. So you're gonna feed the string, from one hole to another. It's similar to sewing, right? So I started at the bottom left-hand corner, pulled it out, and then I fed through the top left. And you're gonna repeat this step 2 times per hole, because your end goal is that you want to have 2 loops per hole. That way you can attach a total of 6 mini journals into your binder. So at this point, you're just going to continue looping that string in and out from the bottom hole to the top, and you're going to do that 2 times. Now you'll see here that I'm using a paper clip just to hold down one of my ends so it can be out of my way. So you're just going to keep feeding it from the bottom hole, add it to the top hole, and then when it's time to cross over, you just cross over from either the inside or the outside, but you feed it to the next hole. So that'll create another loop outside. When you are done with all your loops, then you're going to just trim it and then tie your knot. Before I tie my strings together, I'm just making sure that I have 2 loops per hole. So here I'll just start tugging on the string just like you do with your shoelaces, so it's a nice snug fit. So just make a triple knot and then trim the excess. So this is our completed cover. The front, the back, the inside. There's our string. You can't even tell this was made from a cereal box. So now let's go ahead and insert our journals. So I created a total of 4 inserts for her, and I decorated them all. And I created tuck spots, and I added panels for her to add pictures, and I added pockets. So for every tuck spot and pocket, I added the bright pink paper so she can quickly identify where those tuck spots and pockets are located. So let's go ahead and do a quick flip through so you can see all of my 4 journals. Out of the 4 journals, I think this was my favorite. I love the hot air balloon as the cover. I tried to not cover that up with ephemeras. Now inside here, I even created that little tiny book journal inside of the journal, and I added a little decorative paper clip for her to add any notes and dates to this journal. But these were definitely fun to make. I didn't create a video on how to create these, but if you're interested in learning how to create these, go ahead and comment below and I will record one for you. Now to add the mini journals into our binder, you're just going to flip your book to the center, which is where you'll see the staples, and pull on those strings and just insert them right in. So that's the cool thing about these travel journals, that they're removable. So whenever you're getting ready for a trip, you just pull one of the journals out and it fits right into your suitcase, your purse, and when you're done, you just put it right back into your journal. Hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thanks for joining me. Bye.